Hello and welcome to another video coming from the GCSE Computing course. In this video we're looking at the 15th topic in this series, which is all about the database management system. So I've just said it, DBMS stands for Database Management System, and you may be asked to state what the initials mean. That's an easy 1 mark question, you don't want to forget, so learn what that means. I think it's quite easy to learn. Database Management System, and that sums up what it does. So if you just define it in a way, which isn't really a definition but it maybe explains it better, a DBMS is a program that handles, another word for manages, databases, and it allows the user or users, there can be multiple users involved, usually there will be multiple users involved, to add data, extract it, and we looked at this in the previous video. Extract it it's got the same meaning as interrogating it, and you can also edit the details of it through the DBMS. So a DBMS is desirable for lots of reasons, otherwise it wouldn't be used at all. And one of the reasons are that it allows a degree of separation from other applications. The DBMS is separated from the applications and the database, as we'll look at in a little diagram in a sec. So this is desirable for lots of reasons, like I said, but an important reason is for security, and when it comes to lots of users accessing it at the same time. And again, we'll look at that in a sec. So this is because, so the reason why it's separated is because the database uses a standardized programming language such as SQL, which you don't actually have to look at in this course. In the AQA course you have to know about SQL, you don't need to know about it in this course, but that's an example of a database programming language, and the programming language is standardized across the applications for DBMS and the database. So that means it interacts with the other applications, users, and even other DBMS systems, and then the DBMS does all the more complex processing depending on what the user or program is asked for. That's a little bit complicated, but hopefully I'll explain that in a sec. So for DBMS, what it does, it bridges the gap between the database and the other applications who require access to it, so the other users or other programs that need access to it. So if we have 3 or just any number of applications here, then you have your DBMS, and the applications speak, but they obviously not actually speak, they handshake and they connect to the DBMS somehow, and then the DBMS connects to or is linked to the database. So the DBMS is linked to the database, and it manages it, it controls access to it, as we'll look at in the next slide. And the applications, so this could be, if this was a company, so like I said, the DBMS systems are usually used for large companies, large websites, when you have lots of users accessing it at any given time. So if you have, so each here, I just did application as an example. If each thing requesting something from the database here is a computer and a company, the DBMS will filter the requests and make sure that all the requests get served via the database. So if you've heard of it, it's almost like a firewall in that in that respect. A firewall is used to filter out internet traffic, and it's similar to that. And here, so if we had an example of this being used, YouTube, I know YouTube does it. So for example, if you liked a video, so if you like this video, your like would, the YouTube will send some code to the DBMS it uses, and then the DBMS will update the database for this video. So when the video is loaded again, another like appears. And so on a video that has maybe 2,000 likes, you have 2,000 individual users accessing the DBMS just for that video. So clearly for YouTube, the DBMS they use is going to be huge, absolutely huge, and it's going to be huge database as well, probably lots and lots of databases. So let's have a look at some features of a DBMS, and this links into a lot of what we talked about in the last slide, so if you're confused, hopefully this will clear it up. So a DBMS has several key features that can be used to create customized data handling applications. The last bit of this is required by the spec, and it confused me a lot when I first saw this. I made all this information, and then I looked at what the spec said again, and what I'd written didn't go along with what the spec meant, which confused me a bit because it goes against something that I thought was true. But I've actually taken a lot of information from this slide from a question that was in an exam paper a couple of years ago, and the mark scheme especially, so hopefully this is as accurate as I can make it. So a first feature we can look at is the fact that the DBMS provides a set of tools for accessing and maintaining the database. Examples of this are, it allows you to create tables within a database and running queries. We'll look at what queries mean in the next video. You don't need to know about that just for now. So the reason why this may help with creating customized programs or applications is that you can selectively choose what tools of the DBMS you want to use with your program. So YouTube, if we're doing our likes example, YouTube would use the tool that would allow it to update the database with extra likes or whatever. So another feature is that the application is independent from the database. So the DBMS is independent from the database, which we looked at before. The reason why this allows greater customability, which is, I'm not even sure it's a word, but you have the person who runs the DBMS has got a greater choice of what database and DBMS providers they choose. So there are lots of ways to create databases. Some companies will provide a service to do databases. Likewise, there are DBMS providers such as Microsoft Access, which is quite a small time DBMS provider. And the fact that they're separate, you don't need, so if you wanted to choose a database for any given reason, the size, the cost, you're not obliged to use a certain management system. You can, in theory, choose a different system that suits your needs personally. So you have a greater choice. You have more customizability in that access. So if you wanted to change your DBMS, it wouldn't ruin your database. They're sort of separate, which is useful. So another feature that's useful is that the DBMS will automatically check for issues. So what it does, it validates the data stored. And what this means is when the DBMS is set up, it can be customized for the user's specific purpose. So an example is that it can be made so that it checks if prices submitted are in pounds only. If we talk about it in our YouTube example, it's views, or actually no, let's do likes. So if when you submit these likes to the database, to the DBMS, it sees that like 30 likes have come from the same IP address, the same computer, it's going to smell a rat. It knows that someone's been trying to cheat the system, and it won't validate the data submitted. It'll just discard it because it knows that someone's trying to get around the system and trying to add likes to their videos that they don't need. I don't know who'd be sad enough to create accounts to do that, but anyway, it just double checks that. So make sure that the information stored in the database is as accurate as possible. So finally, the last feature that the mark scheme I looked at mentions is that it controls access to the data, and this is good. So in the previous previous slide, we looked at the fact that it's sort of in the middle between the database and the applications, and it controls the access to it, which is great for security purposes. It filters out dodgy requests. It makes sure that only registered users can access a database, and it prevents it from maybe being hacked as easily. So that's good for security. And when it's also good when multiple users try to access a database at the same time. So the DBMS may allow, depending on what it is, allow several users to access it at the same time. It may not. It may have to do it in like an order, so one at a time sort of thing, and it's useful to be able to customize that as you want to. So that's it for today's video. Hopefully it was useful. Next time we're looking at relational databases, not one of people's favorite topics, but very, very important. So hopefully you'll join me for that video next.